Welcome, dear listeners, to Into the Paradox, the show where we grapple with the big questions shaping our future, often finding that the answers are as complex as the questions themselves. I'm your host, Peter, and today we're diving headfirst into a paradox that's vibrating through the very soul of creativity, artificial intelligence and its place in music. It's a debate that pits fear against fascinating potential. Fear that AI could diminish, even eradicate, the unique human touch that defines art, and the potential, thrilling, terrifying potential, that it could immortalize artists, unlock new realms of sound, or even allow us to hear new material from voices long silent. Today, we have an extraordinary panel to navigate this intricate landscape. We're incredibly honored to welcome a living legend whose music has shaped generations and continues to define what it means to be an artist, Sir Paul McCartney.
Hello, Peter. Lovely to be here, and a bit daunting to talk about such a futuristic topic.
Sir Paul, your music is the very definition of timeless, so it's particularly poignant to discuss how technology might interact with such a legacy. We also have with us Dr. Anastasia Petrova, a celebrated cultural historian who will help us understand humanity's long, often anxious relationship with new technologies in art.
Thank you, Peter. It's a fascinating discussion.
Indeed. But Paul, let's start with the elephant in the studio. When you hear about AI generating music in the style of a specific artist, or even creating new tracks using their voice, what's your gut reaction? Is it excitement, caution, or perhaps a bit of trepidation?
Well, Peter, as you can imagine, it's a bit of all three, really. My first thought is often, where's the magic? You know, the human element, the struggling, the late nights, the accidental chord that just works. That's where the soul of the song comes from. If a machine just spits it out, is it really art? I mean, I'm not a Luddite, never have been. We embraced new technologies, even pushed them in the Beatles. Multi-track recordings, sampling, synthesizers. We loved experimenting. But those were always tools in our hands. We were still the ones making the decisions, guiding the vision. The idea of AI taking over, of a computer just churning out a new Paul McCartney song without any input from me, that feels a bit like a ghost in the machine, doesn't it? A digital spectre trying to wear my shoes. It worries me about authenticity, about dilution. What happens to the value of a song if it could just be endlessly replicated by an algorithm?
That's a powerful point, Paul. The struggle and the soul, those are intrinsic to our understanding of artistic creation. But on the other side of that coin, there's a burgeoning idea that AI could actually preserve and immortalize artists in a way never before possible. Imagine, Paul, a world where fans could experience new music from John Lennon, not just from old demos, but truly new compositions, crafted with the aid of AI, learning from his unique style, his vocal inflections, his lyrical themes. To some, that's not dilution, it's a resurrection, a way to keep that artistic spirit alive indefinitely.
I understand the sentiment. Believe me, part of me would love to hear more from John. But even with the Now and Then track, that was us finishing his demo. It had his voice, his piano line, and then we, George, Ringo and I, added our touch, our lives, our current feelings to it. That's a collaboration with the past. But if it's just a machine, without the heart, without the person, even if it sounds like him, does it feel like him? Does it have the weight of his experience? It's a very philosophical question, isn't it? And perhaps a slightly chilling one.
It is, and it's a question humanity has asked before with every major technological leap. Anastasia, you've studied how technology has impacted music throughout history. Does this current anxiety around AI echo past concerns?
Absolutely, Peter. The concerns Paul raises are incredibly valid, and they resonate deeply with anxieties that have surfaced with almost every significant technological advancement in music. Think about the printing press in the 15th century. Before that, music was largely an oral tradition, passed down, learned by rote, and often improvised. When sheet music became widely reproducible, there were fears it would stifle creativity, make music too rigid, remove the spontaneity. Yet, it led to a standardization that allowed for complex orchestral compositions, the widespread study of music, and the rise of classical forms we cherish today. Then came the phonograph in the late 19th century. Recording music! Imagine the outrage and fear. It wraps the soul of the performer. It will kill live performance. Why would anyone go to a concert if they can hear it at home? Of course, it democratized music, created global superstars, and fundamentally changed how we consume and create music. It allowed us to preserve performances, much like Peter's point about immortalizing artists. And in recent decades, we've had the synthesizer becoming mainstream, with purists declaring it inauthentic or not real music. Then sampling, where artists were accused of stealing or lazy creation. Ultimately, synthesizers and sampling opened up entirely new genres and sonic landscapes.
The pattern is clear. Initial fear, often rooted in a perceived threat to authenticity or human input, followed by a period of adaptation and ultimately expansion of what music can be. AI is just the latest and perhaps most powerful iteration of this cycle. The difference now is the level of perceived agency the technology might have.
You're right, Anastasia. It does sound familiar. But the difference for me is that the printing press, the phonograph, the synthesizer, they were still very much controlled by the human hand, the human mind. They expanded our palette, yes, but we were still the painters. With AI, it feels like the paint might start mixing itself, or even painting for us. And that's where my apprehension lies.
And that's precisely the paradox we're exploring, Paul. Because for many, myself included, the idea of AI taking on a more active role isn't about replacement, but about unprecedented collaboration. Imagine an AI that could analyze every chord progression, every lyrical choice, every vocal nuance of your entire career. Then, imagine it suggesting a new melody that perfectly encapsulates your early style, or a lyrical phrase that echoes a theme you explored decades ago, but in a fresh context, not to replace you, but to serve as an ultimate muse, an infinite well of stylistic knowledge, helping you break through writer's block or explore paths you might never have considered.
An infinite well of stylistic knowledge sounds rather tempting after a long day in the studio, but then, where's the struggle? Where's the discovery? Part of the joy of writing is that moment when something clicks, when you surprise yourself. If the machine is offering up all the answers, is it still my creation? Is it still my genius, or the machine's?
And what about the legal implications? If an AI generates a new track in the style of Paul McCartney, who owns it? Me? The developers of the AI? The AI itself? It's a very muddy picture. Those are critical questions, Paul. Copyright and ownership are already being fiercely debated in legal circles. But to Peter's point, the future might not be about AI replacing the artist, but rather becoming an incredibly sophisticated co-pilot. Think of it as an interactive archive, and almost a creative sparring partner. The artist still has the final say, still injects the human emotion and intent. The AI merely expands the possibilities, performs the heavy lifting of composition in a certain style, or generates variations that the artist then refines and imbues with their unique spirit.
Exactly. To me, it's about accessibility and continuity. When an artist passes, their creative output ceases. But if we could develop ethical AI models, trained with explicit consent and robust safeguards, imagine being able to hear a new, fully orchestrated symphony by a composer like Beethoven, or a new rock anthem from a band like Queen, decades or centuries after their time. It's not to replace their existing work, but to allow their unique artistic voice to continue to resonate, for new generations to discover and for existing fans to experience anew. It's a form of artistic immortality.
Immortality. It's a beautiful thought, Peter. But there's a fine line between immortalizing an artist's work and trying to create a synthetic version of their being. The danger, as I see it, is losing sight of the human experience that fuels the art. My songs come from my life, my loves, my losses, my thoughts on the world. Can a machine truly replicate that depth of human experience? I doubt it. Perhaps for some things it could be interesting, for restoring old recordings, or perhaps even generating some background textural music for a film. But the heart of it, the core message, the raw emotion, that has to come from us, the squishy humans.
And that's where the ethical framework becomes paramount. Consent, transparency, and clear attribution will be essential. The technology itself isn't inherently good or bad, it's how we choose to wield it. Will we use AI to amplify human creativity, or will we allow it to diminish it? That choice, thankfully, still rests with us.
A profound point, Anastasia. Paul, knowing what you know now and hearing Anastasia's historical perspective, does your view shift at all on the potential, if not the purity, of AI in music?
It certainly gives one a lot to think about. I'm still cautious, but perhaps a little less terrified. If it truly remains a tool, and we humans remain firmly in the driver's seat with all the legal and ethical safeguards in place, then maybe it could open some interesting doors. But the moment it feels like it is creating, and we are just the audience, that's where I'd have to draw the line. It's about the unique spark, isn't it? The human spark. And I don't think a machine can ever truly recreate that. Not yet, anyway.
The human spark. A perfect summation from Sir Paul McCartney. And that, my friends, brings us to the close of this fascinating, challenging, and often paradoxical discussion. We've heard the concerns of a legendary artist, the historical echoes of past technological shifts, and the tantalizing promise of AI as an ultimate creative partner or even a pathway to artistic immortality. The paradox remains. Can AI enhance and immortalize our art without diluting its very essence? The answer, as always, is probably somewhere in the delicate balance, in the ethical choices we make, and in our unwavering commitment to the human spirit that fuels all true creation. My deepest thanks to Sir Paul McCartney for sharing his wisdom and candor, and to Dr. Anastasia Petrova for her illuminating historical context.
Thank you, Peter. A pleasure.
Thank you, Peter, Paul.
And thank you for joining us into the paradox. Until next time, keep questioning, keep creating, and remember that the future of art is still very much in our hands.